Hey everyone, so this is part 2 of prompt engineering series. Again, we are following the thread on the basic prompting techniques. In this video, we're going to learn these 20 tips and tricks on different ways you can use these keywords or elements within your prompt to get better outputs. We're going to go through multiple examples like this, like understanding how you can incorporate elements to make better task clarity, role definition, persona, tone adjustment, things like that. You are in for a treat. I hope you find it valuable. I'll see you on the next one. Take care. If you have watched the part 1, you can particularly skip this particular chapter of explaining what is prompt. But I would say it doesn't hurt listening to 2 or 3 times so that these concepts are ingrained in our brain so that we consciously use these whenever we think about prompt and prompting. So first and foremost, what is a prompt before understanding prompting techniques? A prompt is a set of instructions or a message that you give to an AI like ChatGPT or Copilot. And these instructions are given to do something for you. Or if you want something, you are giving that instruction to the Gen AI and you're expecting an output from it. You can think of it like a super smart assistant who follows exactly what you say, but only if you are clear and detailed. So if you give a vague explanation or not good with your communication, you get a vague response because you are not clearly articulating your need in a right way. Similarly, this assistant we are talking about is super smart. It comes with a lot of skill set. Like it can create images, it can transform document, it can find information for us, it can format information for us, it can do many things which I as an individual cannot do all by myself. So if I learn how to clearly articulate in a detailed format to this smart assistant, this is going to give me a much better result. That is prompt instruction. Next, learn about what is prompting. Prompting is giving the direction to AI. Just like how you give direction to a person if somebody asks you for a direction, here using prompting, you are clearly telling about what you want. You are explaining the context or giving a background of information. At the same time, you can set the boundary, like you can incorporate constraints and things like that. We will talk about that. We will see much more example in the coming real life example. And then you can tell them to adopt a persona, like you can assume as a persona, or you can tell that you can create an output for a particular persona and things like that. Why is prompting important? First and foremost, to be very simple, good prompt gives you better responses or better output, and bad prompt is going to give you bad output. I'm gonna slightly polish it and say that it's gonna give you confusing or messy answers. So it's like garbage in, garbage out. How can you learn how to ask the right way? It's gonna help you determine like how to save time. It is gonna get you better answers, and you're gonna incorporate using this generative AI within your life more creatively and powerfully. It is either going to boost your productivity or it is going to find things for you faster, and you're going to make it really useful in your personal life. So learn how to use this by asking the right way. Let's look at some of the key components needed for a great prompt. I'm not going to go through this in detail because we have quite a lot of examples in this particular part. We are going through 20 examples incorporating all of these elements like task, role, audience, tone, context, format, styles, constraint, purposes, iteration. Sometimes we are going to use combination of one or two or three into a single prompt to get a different output. Here the output is not that important. What I'm trying to show is how you can incorporate these sort of an elements within your prompting technique so that each of these elements can determine what sort of an output you're going to get. So that is what we are going to learn here. Let's look at some of the tips for great prompting. When you are a beginner, I would encourage you to start really simple. Ask questions in a very straight format. fashion. Don't try to add a lot of elements into it. It's like an example given before, like, hey, create an image of dash, or help me understand what is natural language processing. Leave it at that. Then you add details or add supplemental information like, hey, now can you help me understand this, how you would explain it to a 10-year-old in a funny way. Or you can assign a role saying that, hey, you assume a role as a science teacher and now explain that to a particular kid. So now you are introducing persona into the mix. Then be specific. Things like ask for a particular summary or comparison table or an email list for that output you have got. And don't worry, always use the iterate functionality or iterate feature, because the more question you ask, it is going to refine and give you much more fine-tuned result, because there is no limit or number of things you can ask. So go ahead and like feel free to ask as many questions as a follow-up question on top of it to keep the conversation going to get much result. And know your goal, like what you are trying to learn, build, or solve. Like have that clear crystallized idea in your mind even before you put that into the prompt. So don't think of prompting is a magic. It is definitely a skill which you can learn. When you learn, just constantly practice it. That is going to improve your prompting skill. And all of these components and the elements which I'm teaching you today, it's going to be crystallized in your mind so that you don't have to like forcefully think about these. This will come naturally to you when you start prompting into these technologies. So if I could use an analogy to explain the prompting, it's like ordering at a restaurant. If I go and say that, hey, can I have some food? I will sometimes get a random food. But if you say that, hey, I want a spicy veggie burger with some sweet potato fries, then you're going to exactly get what you wanted. So the more specific you can get, the better the result you're going to get. Let us go and look into the first example. So here what we are trying to learn is task clarity. When you write a prompt, make sure you write in a clear and purposeful prompt for either for your personal or for your work use. So the example what I used here is a short prompt. It's asking, hey, can you write a weekend itinerary for a family visiting Rotorua with kids? So what this particular through this prompt, what I'm trying to teach is the clear task definition. So the task here is write a weekend itinerary is the task, and then to improve the output, what I given additional context, like I am with my family visiting a particular place and we have kids, so that along with the itinerary, the model can incorporate and understand this is a family and with kids, so suggest certain things based on these elements. All right, let's go and copy this prompt, and we are going to use multiple models here. We are not doing any model comparison. That's not the objective here. All we are doing is we are learning the prompting techniques. Just for the first example, I'm just going to run this into different models. First, you have seen I've run it in the Copilot personal one. This is the Copilot work version. This is ChatGPT. This is Google Gemini, Meta AI, and DeepSeek. So when you run this pretty much everywhere, you're going to get almost similar output because the prompt is the same. You might see some word changes here and there. That's not what we are doing a comparison here, but I just want to show you how to prompt. You can basically pick the platform of choice which you like to use and basically go to the window and ask that question, and it is going to give you an itinerary. So if you look at the itinerary in the Copilot Personal, you can see that it already picked up the elements like kids and incorporating certain things which I can do with the kids and the family. So I have a itinerary based on Saturday and Sunday, some tasks or things I can do on morning, afternoon, and evening. These are like family friendly and kids friendly places, and this is quite good, and some recommendation towards the end. So if I go through the other models or other places, it's going to be almost similar. So you can see that I have day one and day two itinerary, things like that. One advantage of using the work one is we have enterprise data protection. with that, Microsoft have an agreement with the customers that whatever information you put in here to prompt is not used to train the model. And when we send this information out to get information for you, like latest things what you can do in Rotorova, things like that, we are not sending the whole prompt as it is. We are sending only the keywords. When we send that, that information is abstracted away from who the user asked and things like that. So that is not used to rank the website or use any sort of advertisement on your question and things like that. So if you go to ChatGPT, you get similar itinerary, breaking it down into different parts of the day. That is quite good. Gemini also gave you the same sort of a format. What I can do in a slightly different method apart from that, Meta did the same thing. So we are not going to hear, we are not going to actually sit and read through the output. That's not the objective. So I'm going to close the DeepSeek, Meta AI, Gemini, ChatGPT. Going forward, we are going to use this Copilot Personal and Copilot Work just for asking this question, because we are learning the basic prompting, right? We are not learning the comparison between these output. That's for a different video. Just for our reference for the future, I'm just going to copy this example and I'm going to put that in the presentation pack. So by the way, you can download this presentation pack by looking into the description box in the YouTube video, or if you're watching it in the website, I'm sure I will put a link where you can go and download extra resources. All right, so that's the task clarity. So if you provide a clear, clarified task to do to a model, it is going to respond back with real information. So I could have really asked, like, can I have a weekend itinerary for visiting Rotorova? I would have got an itinerary, but that wouldn't be specific to me because I'm planning to take my family and we have kids and things like that. So I would definitely want an itinerary with some tailored responses based on the context of what I'm asking. So that's what task clarity means. A well defined task improves the relevance of the output. The next concept we are learning is the role definition. So here, what we are learning is assigning roles to shape the output, tone, and perspective on the output. So here, if you look at the prompt, you're mentioning things like as a travel guide. So you are kind of implying and telling the model to assume a role as a travel guide and recommend 3 hidden gems in New Zealand for adventure lovers. So what we are trying to learn here is not the 3 hidden gems in New Zealand that you can very much go and search. What we are trying to learn is introducing the concept called role definition, how it is going to impact the output. So I'm going to ask the question here in this window. As a travel guide, recommend 3 hidden gems in New Zealand for adventure lovers. All right, so now the output is pretty much straight to the point. It tells that we have certain breathtaking landscape and hidden gems in New Zealand, which I totally agree 100%. And 3 places where they recommend are these, and you have these citations here or reference link. You can click on this, that takes you to the page where you can actually go and read more about it. So if I ask the same question in the Copilot work, it is pretty much gonna exactly do the same thing. If, as you can see, that there are few slight tweaks or differences in terms of responses. It says that, hey, this is a gem and what are the things you can do, adventure highlights. In the personal one, we didn't get that adventure highlights. Yes, we did get some mention about that, but not in a clear, detailed, pointed way. So if you don't like a specific answer, you can always go back to the model and iterate on it. We have an example learning about what iteration is. So you don't have to take the first output as the final one. You can actually constantly go and ask further questions to further fine tune these output, things like that. So let's make a copy of this example and let's add it into the pack so we can always revisit this. So if you want to get access to this prompt to try out yourself, you can find the link to download this in the YouTube description or in the blog post. Let's look at the third example. The third example we are going to learn is audience awareness. So what are we going to learn here? So if you want to create a content based on different target audiences, it's really good way to include this audience awareness element to it. When you do that, that's going to cater the output towards a particular set of audience. So the prompt, what you're looking here is explain how the cloud works to a high school student interested in tech. So that's what I mean by audience awareness. So one, you're asking the model to explain how the cloud works. That is basic. You can tell that it is going to give you a lot of responses. But if you tweak it to tell that, hey, explain it to a student who is interested in tech, but the student is a high school student, so it is going to change the format in a simpler way a high school student can understand. So let's go and copy this prompt. I'm going to make a duplicate tab of it, and we are going to run two different prompt. Let's get rid of this agent. So in the first one, I'm going to click on new chat, and I'm going to ask explain how cloud works to a high school student interested in tech. And the next one, I'm going to ask explain how cloud works, and let's ask the same question in two different prompts. The first one, we ask it to explain to a high school student. The next one is basic vague prompt, explain how the cloud works. So let's do a quick comparison here. The first one, it says that, hey, let's break down how cloud works in a simple and easy to understand way, and it gives me a good overview on what cloud is. If you look at the right hand side, it straight away get into complex topics like remote servers, store and manage processing, things like that. So if you're not quite technical, you are kind of lost here itself. So you can see that on the right hand side it's quite technical. On the left hand side it's way simpler, and it is taking step by step approach to explaining it. So without the cloud, you save your file on a USB stick. With the cloud, you save it in Google Drive or OneDrive. That is quite easy to understand. Here it starts talking about data center, internet access, scalability, redundancy, things like that. What I'm trying to tell here is there is nothing wrong with either of those. But if you are trying to learn cloud, but if you can't digest this sort of technical jargons and assumptions like that, you already know about these things, it's good to introduce these concepts like audience awareness. Tell that who you are, what sort of a depth you have. Are you trying to teach somebody who is not familiar with these concepts? Do you want to explain this to kids? So it gives you these neat little hacks which you can use to modify the content output based on how you would like to receive. And if you look at the examples, it gives relatable examples on where it is stored, what it is run, applications like Netflix and Instagram, which a high school student would definitely understand. But if I start talking about IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS, I don't think anybody would understand. And high school student, for no matter, would definitely switch their mind off and walk away. All right, so that's an example on audience awareness. I'm going to quickly take a photo of this and put it in our pack. So this kind of shows the kind of simple messages it uses to explain a particular concept. That is good. So the lesson what we learned here is output becomes simpler or more details depending on the reader. So if you change the prompt and tell that explain it to a university graduate, then this example would be totally different. The next one element what we are learning is purpose clarity. So here we are going to specify an intent to improve the message effectiveness. So if you look at the prompt, it says that write a short message to invite my team to a Friday knowledge sharing session. So let's go ahead and copy the prompt. So I can actually go and give more context to get a better result. I would consider this particular prompt as vague because it doesn't have context on what my team is, what do I do, and things like that. So let's see if we can run it so we can slowly build this up. I'm going to go back to the Copilot. I don't want the comparison this time. Let's go to a new chat and let's run this message. Write a short message to invite a team to a Friday knowledge sharing session. So we clearly mentioned the purpose here. The purpose clarity is one, we want a short message. Second is to invite my team members for a Friday knowledge sharing session. These are the purpose and it has some clarity in it. even though the context is vague. So because I mentioned it's a short message, it's clearly given me a super short message. Hey, you are invited and let's come together. This is the date, time, location. Very direct and super crisp information. I like it. So take a copy of this and use it in our example and paste it as an example in our output pack. All right, so what did we learn here? We learned about giving the clarity in terms of the purpose when you write these prompt. And this taught us stating the purpose. And the lesson we learned is knowing the intent ensures the tone and structure fit the goal. Let's look at the next example. Here we are learning about the tone and the tone adjustment. So modifying the tone to fit into either a casual, formal, professional, to cater different emotional needs. The example prompt, what we are going to use is write a cheerful message announcing my promotion on LinkedIn. Again, I wouldn't say that this is a perfect prompt, but just because we are learning about tone adjustment, this definitely have the tonal element like cheerful message. That's the output we are going to emphasize here. But other than that, this definitely lack the context behind it, like what sort of a promotion, what sort of a job, things like that. If you supplement that additional information, you're going to get much better result. So let's copy the prompt and go back to Copilot, click on new chat. Here, run this. I'm going to say write a cheerful message announcing my promotion on LinkedIn. I got a response, but you can see that I clearly need to put in information like your new position, company name, and things like that. But if I had provided that context, answer or the output will include all of that details. Because I mentioned about cheerful message, it added some emojis, a nice catchy statement to gain attention, some party emojis, things like that. So that is quite good. So let's copy this, put it as an example. Let's look at example number 6. Here we are going to learn about how you can incorporate format specification into your prompt. You can define things like you want the output format to be in a bulleted format or in a short summary or in an email format or based on a social media post or a tweet, etc. So let's look at the prompt. Here we are saying summarize today's meeting actions items as bullet points for email. So let's copy the prompt. Let's go to Copilot. So this is where Copilot really shines because it understands your work and things like that. So if you are using the work tab and if you ask question like, hey, summarize today's meeting action in the bulleted points and email, if there is any meeting happened, then it would automatically go and do that. We will see that deeper insight into that and things like that. So we are not looking into the work aspect. We are just following the web one. I'm going to ask the other Copilot, create a mock meeting action items in a paragraph. So that this is a mock meeting information. I'm just going to copy that. Here, I'm going to put summarize today's meeting action as a bullet point for an email. And I'm going to paste the paragraph here, which we copied from the mock one. And I'm going to say that look for the information from the below information. So basically the prompt is the same. Summarize today's information action item as a bullet points. If you use the work tab, you can actually reference the meeting in itself by adding the content or referencing. Don't worry about it. We will learn that in the intermediate prompting stage. Now let's stick to the basics. So here I'm saying that, hey, there is a information in paragraph. Can you put that in action items bullet points? So let's send it. So based on this complicated paragraph format, now if you look at it, the action item from today's meeting is drafted in a such nice clear format for me. And we specifically asked for bullet points. So it's extracted this information into clear actionable bullet point. Let's copy this and let's put that in the presentation pack. Let's look at the next example. Here we are looking at the context inclusion. So it's really good to give the context. You remember in the third example or something which I reiterate the fact that adding more context gives you better output. So this is exactly what we are going to learn. Providing context to generate relevant and accurate answers. So the prompt is based on our last sprint retrospective suggest 3 improvement for our agile workflow. So that's a prompt we are going to use. But here the context is you're telling Copilot to look into the last three sprints. So I don't have last three sprints in the demo lab, but if you have that data in your work tab, it's all you have to do is ask the question in the work tab. You don't even have to mention like what the sprint and things like that. It can look into your organizational data and it can give you the improvement for your agile workflow. We will look into that aspect later. So here, like last example, we are going to create a fake one. So I'm going to ask create a mock retrospective for last three different sprint sessions. So it is going to give me the data. All I have to do is copy this. Imagine if this is your last sprint, and I'm going to tell the left side Copilot, look at the below input, and I'm going to paste that. So if you have this in a document, you can always refer it. You can click on add content, and this will allow you to add content like a document, PDF, things like that. So we will look into that aspect later. So now let's stick to the prompting. What we are learning here is adding bit of a context. So I'm giving a lot of context here, a lot of information about last three sprint, and let's click enter. So based on the retrospective insight from sprint 1 to 3, here are three suggested improvement to enhance the agile workflow. So it tells that, hey, what are the things you can do, why, how to improve, some integration capabilities based on the mock one we created. So we are not going to dive deep into the output, but we kind of learned an example about how you can incorporate more context either by adding into your work or either by giving as an output. And you can add these context by either looking into your work tab, or you can supplement this information via email or document, etc. So that's an example for further reference in the future. Let's look at example number 8. Here we are going to learn about constraints. So applying this character or word limit as constraint. So you can think of constraint in any form as you like. So in this example, we are looking at like a word or a character constraint. So if you look at the prompt, what we are learning here is we are going to ask a model to write a tweet. Now it is called X. So I hope that works as a tweet. Okay, write a tweet under 230 characters. So I'm clearly specifying whatever output you're going to give me, it's going to be limited within a specific scope. That is called constraint. And this constraint, what we are using here is the character limit. Characters should not go to 80 characters. And summarizing the build highlights. All right, let's copy this prompt and go to our Copilot and let's click on new chat. I'm just going to run this as it is. We got an efficient tweet here. Say that, hey, here's a tweet summarizing the highlights of Microsoft Build 2025. So let's go and copy this and put that sample in our example and paste that output as a reference for our future need. Let us look into the next one. The last one, what we learned is the constraints. So here we learned about how to apply constraints, and we learned about when you guide AI to produce precise to the point constraint, it is going to actually follow your instruction thoroughly. So add those sort of constraints or elements when you define your prompt. The next one is learning about structure control. Here what we are going to learn is structuring the content with a custom layout or length. So you need to have that clear goal in your mind. This is exactly what I want. So the prompt what we are going to test is generate a 5-paragraph blog on why prompt engineering is essential for Copilot. So here what we are telling is how you want to structure it. You want a paragraph based structure, and you're adding a constraint here by telling that you want only 5-paragraph blog post. So you're not basically telling, hey, create a blog post. That is a vague one. So here, if in your mind you say that, hey, I want 3 paragraphs and 2 section on bulleted points, you can clearly articulate that and it is going to listen to your constraint and follow the structure control. So let's copy this prompt and let's go back to the Copilot. Here I'm going to click on new chat. We will run 2 versions of it. In the first version, we are going to run the prompt as it is, create a 5-paragraph blog post on why prompt engineering is essential for Copilot. The next one, I'm going to remove generate a 5 paragraph, and I'm going to remove generate a blog on why prompt engineering is essential for Copilot. And then we'll compare the two responses. The first one, you can see that why prompt engineering is essential. You can clearly see that it's a 5 paragraph response. That is quite good. In the second one, I didn't had any sort of structural constraint. I basically let Copilot decide how Copilot is going to give me an output. So based on that, I can see that there are a lot of heading, why prompt engineering is essential, what is prompt engineering, why it matters, some examples, some bullet points, things like that. I like the second version better, but we are not here to judge the content. We are basically trying to learn the prompting basics, right? So I'm just going to quickly copy this as a reference, and let's add that into our document, and let's go and learn about the next example. So what, oh, before that, let's go back one more time. All right, so what we learned here is structural instruction, because the structure was 5 paragraph long blog, easy to understand. And these sort of structural control help shape long form responses for consistency. If you are creating a long form content, if you want some sort of a consistency, it's good to include few constraints like this. Let's look at the 10th example, multiple task. So in this, what we are going to learn is how you can add multiple tasks and how this model is going to handle multiple tasks with a single prompt. So the prompt here is summarize this team's transcript, list action items, and suggest a follow-up email. So based on whatever you're going to provide here, it could be a team's transcript, a meeting, whatever you had before, or a document which you're going to upload, or give a text. Based on that, it is going to extract 2 or 3 things. One, you want a list of action, and next you want to suggest a follow-up email as well based on one. So you're incorporating 2 3 action into a single prompt. Let's copy that prompt and go back to our Copilot. Click on new chat. I'm going to click on new chat on both and put the prompt as it is. Here I'm going to ask create a mock Teams conference call transcript. So it is creating a mock transcript. So I'm just going to copy this mock transcript. I'm going to go here, paste it, and here I'm going to tell summarize the Teams transcript, list action item, and suggest follow-up email from the below input, and hit send. Now it is going to scan through the transcript, and it is going to do 2 things. First, it is going to give a suggested follow-up email, and next it is going to give us an action item. These are the 2 things we asked: action item and a suggested follow-up email based on the transcript. That is quite good. So let's go and copy this. In this, what we have learned is by adding these multiple tasks, the model can handle compounding tasks. That is quite good. So you don't have to have each prompt with a specific task. You can compound multiple things into a single prompt and ask for an output. And AI can handle these multiple outputs if tasks are clearly stated. Next, let's go and learn a scenario simulation. So what we are going to learn here is using a scenario-based prompt for realistic communication. So the prompt what we're going to try is, hey, you are a manager. That is basically telling Copilot to assume a role as a manager and give constructive feedback to a team member who missed a deadline. So let's go and copy the prompt. Let's go to Copilot. I'm just going to click on new chat. I'm going to run this. So we don't have to provide any context, but if you have any context, you already know that the output is going to be much better. So now let's wait for the result. So you can see that based on what we asked, it is given me an email format. Hey, team member, thanks for taking time to meet today, blah, blah, blah. And this is some constructive feedback on based on whatever it assumed. So now if you want to make a change, you can say that make it more empathetic. The tone will be slightly toned down to be empathetic, and you can add things like, I'm going to say that make it direct and very short. Now it says that, hey, I noticed that the deadline of the product has been missed, and it is very direct and it's a short one. So let's copy this, use this in our pack. Here you can see that there is no name and stuff like that because we haven't provided that context, what project, things like that. If you provide that context, when you get the result, it's gonna have all that additional details. So what did we learn? So this teaches us the ability to for models to understand the role play, tone, and purpose. And this is particularly useful for preparing any sort of real life communication outputs. Let's look at the next example. Here we are going to learn about the elements called voice and style. What we are going to learn here is how you can customize the voice and writing style to fit your particular use case. So the prompt here is write a friendly but formal job application follow-up email. So let's go copy this prompt. What we are trying to learn here is the voice and the style element. Let's go back to the Copilot, click on new chat and ask the question. Write a friendly but formal job application follow-up email. It gave you a good template here. It says that, hey, dear hiring manager, but it's friendly, but at the same time, it's quite formal as well. It has paragraphs. Has a nice ending giving all the details about your contact details and things like that. So let's copy this, add it to the pack. So what we have learned here is you can blend the style and tone into your prompt so that the prompt understand that, and this is going to help you fine tune how personal or professional a response feels. Next example is personalization. What we are learning here is adding a personalization for tailored and useful content. The prompt here is write a birthday message for my wife who loves yoga and nature. So a couple of elements here, adding the context about who you're writing to, and you're giving bit of information about some background for what they like, so that the message can incorporate these sort of an element like yoga and nature, things like that. So let's see if we can run this. Let's copy this, go to Copilot, click on new chat and run this. All right, so let's go through the message. It starts with happy birthday to my beautiful soulmate, blah blah blah. And what we are trying to find is, does it have elements like yoga and nature? So you can clearly see there is two emojis highlighting that nature and yoga, and it incorporates things like nature inspires me to slow down and breathe deeply. That is all incorporating. And finally finishing off with namaste my love and things like that. So definitely it picked up that elements we incorporated. So I'm gonna ask, like, can you make it short, because I can copy that and put that as an example. All right, so this is quite good for my example. So I'm gonna quickly copy this and put that in our presentation pack. The next example, what we are going to learn is iteration. This is a quite important topic because this, what it teaches us is like whatever response you get is not the final one. You can constantly go back and forth to refine the responses in a iterative fashion until you are satisfied with the response. So that is what we are going to learn. So when you do the iteration, it's going to improve the prompt result. So the example prompt we are going to try is refines the previous LinkedIn post to make it more engaging and shorter. So we've been iterating that. Even if you look at the past example, I got a lengthy message. Just to copy that and put it in the PowerPoint pack, what I asked Copilot is to make it shorter. So that is an example of iteration. I didn't know that this was coming, so then I would not have used it before. Now that you have seen the iteration example, you know what it means by it. So what this teaches is iterative refinement, and you can build better content over steps. So let's go and see how this is going to work. I'm going to copy this revise previous LinkedIn post, go back to your Copilot. I'm going to ask Copilot, hey, create a LinkedIn post to announce a new blog post on prompt engineering. Blah, blah, blah. It is going to give me a blog post or like a LinkedIn post to announce it. It's quite wordy. It has a lot of information. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste the prompt what we copied from the PowerPoint pack. Now, revise the previous LinkedIn post to make it more engaging and shorter, and then we can compare it. So now, if I look at it, it is quite a short message compared to the previous one, and it is more engaging too. because it has a title, it has some additional details where it encourages users to click on a link, some hashtags, things like that. That is quite good. So this example was good. So that's how you can go and iterate more. So let's copy this. So if you want to add additional things, so can you go and suggest a catchy title? That's another iteration. So it gives us like 5 title options on how you can put that on the blog post and things like that. So this is how you refine and iterate on an idea. Let's put that in the pack. So what we learned is the iterative refinement, and the lesson is you can build better content over multiple steps. So you don't have to be satisfied with the first answer, or you don't have to be disappointed with the first response you get from the generative AI models. Let's go and learn about the next example. Here we are learning about rewriting for new audience. So reframing the same content for a different audience. So the prompt here is rewrite this particular article on Azure DevOps for non-technical business leaders. So you're taking one particular content and you are modifying that to a specific audience. So what we are learning here is reframing or refactoring the content. So tailoring for different levels of understanding. So let's go and try this out. First, let's copy the prompt. Let's go to Copilot, click on new chat on both the area. The first one we are going to run as it is, rewrite the article. The next one, I'm going to say create a mock technical article on Azure DevOps. So it is going to create an article on Azure DevOps, quite technical because I said technical. It has all the technical bits in it to make it a bit complex to understand if you're not tech savvy. I'm just gonna copy this and I'm gonna say here rewrite this article on Azure DevOps for non-technical business leaders. And first I'm gonna paste this article, and towards the end I'm gonna give the order in which you provide your prompting is also gonna influence the output. So the last information bits what you put, or the one which you front put at the right at the beginning, is going to influence the quality of the output. So let's run it. So immediately it's understood, even though we mentioned that in the bottom of the prompt, rewrite this article, it's now rewritten this article for a business leader. So on a comparison, if I go to side by side comparison, you can see that here what is DevOps, it's straight away went to the product, explaining boards, repos, pipeline, test plan, artifacts, things like that. Here it is giving in a nice summary format what it does rather than what are the tools involved. Some of the key components in simple terms here, it basically went in and start information about how you can do it, some code snippets and things like that. That is not what a business leader need. It clearly explains in simple terms what it does and how it helps the business and things like that. So that is how you can refactor refactor an existing content. So I'm going to quickly copy this part and go to the presentation pack and make a copy of it. So what we learned here is reframing the content and tailoring for different levels of understanding. The next example is creative constraints. So here we are going to learn how you can use creative writing formats like poetry and haikus and things like that. So we're going to say write a poem about Microsoft Copilot in haiku format. So let's copy that. The constraint here is create the poem in haiku format. Of course, if you just say write a poem, we can probably go and see 2 examples. Write a poem and write a poem with a constraint. So I'm going to click on new chat on both. The first one I'm going to say write a poem about Microsoft Copilot in haiku format, and the next one I'm going to say write a poem about Microsoft Copilot. I'm not going to give any particular constraint here. All right, so here on the right hand side you can see that's a quite a lengthy poem about what Copilot does, and on the left hand side this is the haiku poem, which is quite short, sharp and to the point. That's quite good. So I'm going to take a copy of this. It is asking, do you want to look at a visual to go with it? Yes, why not? Create an illustration of the haiku. All right, it's going to create an illustration. So what we are learning here is the visual component of it, and then we are learning about the iteration and further modifying from an existing output, things like that. While that is happening, I'm going to add an example here so that we can reuse it later. So let's go back to the illustration. Wow, this is how Copilot is imagined based on the haiku poem above. Click on new chat on both. Let's go and look at another example. So here what we learned here is creativity within limits. So rather than like telling it to go and use the creativity based on what you think, you're restricting it in a specific format. And the next is, if you let it go, it can actually go out and enhance the creativity as well. The next example is summarization. I think this is kind of like the beginning step everybody would take, like first go and summarize this PDF or the document and things like that. So let's go and learn what it is. So summarizing document and long input effectively. So if you have quite a lengthy wordy information, you can ask Copilot to summarize and shorten it for a specific purpose. So the prompt what we are going to use is summarize this PDF on Copilot agent into 3 key takeaways. I don't think I have a PDF format here. Maybe we can go and create one. That is fine. Or we can see another example. So let's go and see another example. So I'm going to copy this. Let's go to the first Copilot and ask this second Copilot. I'm going to say that create a technical article on advantages on Copilot agent. So it's going to create an article. So I'm not going to save it in a PDF format. If you want, you can do it. So maybe I can do it actually. Let's copy this information. I'm going to open the Word app and just put this information here. So this is all about advantages of Copilot agent in modern workspace. I'm gonna file save as on my Mac desktop. The format, I'm gonna choose PDF and click on export. So now it is converting this word into a PDF document. So once we have it, let's close it. Don't save. So now let's go to desktop. And you can see there is a PDF called advantages of workflow of agent, things like that. So what I can technically do is I can actually drag and drop this into the Copilot. So here, summarize the PDF on Copilot agent into 3 key takeaways, and I uploaded this PDF file and I'm going to send this. So now what Copilot is doing is looking into the data within that PDF. That is quite clever, and it summarized that into 3 bullet points. That is quite good. So let me copy this example and put this here. So what we have learned here is first, content extraction. So you can actually upload a document and you can extract content, and when you extract it, you can be very specific on what format you would like to view it. Is it in a table format or like a bulleted format? Do you want a specific extraction on a specific portion and things like that? And it teaches the conciseness and relevance of the content as well. Let's look into the next example. Here we are going to do a comparison prompt. So what we are going to learn is generating comparisons to simplify decisions. The prompt what we are going to use is compare Azure Firewall and AWS Network Firewall in simple terms. So you can actually supplement this with anything, whatever you can think of. So let's go and copy this prompt. Let's go to Copilot, click on new chat, and we are going to ask the question, can you compare Azure Firewall and AWS Network in simple terms? All right, so it gives us an output. If you look at it, there is feature comparison between Azure Firewall and AWS Network Firewall, how it works. There is a comparison between these two, and there are some key feature comparison as well. And there is some Azure, so there is some pricing comparisons, what it is best for, and things like that. Let's copy that and put it in our output. And you can take this comparison and you can tell it to modify it based on how you would like to see it as well. So that will allow you to make a greater decision on how you can side by side compare. You can tell it to look at both and suggest some ideas on which one is better and things like that. The next one we are going to learn is transforming a document, transforming a raw input into a final output type. So turn this list of features into a marketing tagline. So it is going to help us understand what is transformation like and show us how prompt style can change the final output type. So now what I'm going to use is I'm going to take this prompt. We're going to go to the previous example's output. I'm going to use it against that. Turn this list of features of Azure Firewall into a marketing tagline. So it is going to compare the previous example And this is the marketing tagline based on the features of Azure Firewall. So Azure Firewall is an intelligent, scalable, and always on protected for your cloud network. So that is quite good. Just gonna go back to the PowerPoint pack and paste that information. And the last example we are gonna learn is simplifying complex topics for easier understanding using the method called teach me something. So the prompt example is explain the difference between AI and ML to a 10-year-old. It can be anything. So this is how basically I would learn. So if I'm learning a new concept, I would pretty much ask Copilot about explain to this to a child. Then that breaks down into a simple format. Then once I understood the concept, then I asked to additional supplement information in a high school level, and then I go into the grad level and things like that. So let's copy this prompt. So you don't have to limit with the information what you get. You can always go back and ask additional question to refine it further. So if I ask the same question, explain difference between AI and ML to a 10-year-old, explain ML to a 40-year-old, we should see two different examples. So let's run both. So if we can go back to the result, let's go back to the main result at the top. Here you can see that first it is explaining to the 10-year-old, artificial intelligence is like a brain of a robot, making machines smart. So they can do things like talk to people, play games, help with homework, and drive cars. To a 40-year-old, think of AI as a big umbrella, and it has broad concepts like machine being able to carry out tasks. And the task is like understanding the language, recognizing the face in photos, playing chess or video games, driving cars, etc. So this is quite good. So you can see a stark comparison between the same concept being explained in a two different format. If you add that teach me option and introducing a particular role within the teach me function. So I'm just going to quickly copy this, go back to our presentation pack, save it. So in this, what we have learned is teaching ability of these models to teach us with clarity and simplification. And this helps people learn to control complexity levels. This is exactly how I learn about new topics and things like that. So I hope you found the information on this video helpful. I'm planning to create more intermediate parts and advanced prompt engineering in the future to add it to this collection. So please feel free to watch it if you are interested. Take care.